Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So we are officially a full week into the new format, so we finally have a bit of a taste of what the next couple of months is going to be looking like. It was really nice to see a lot less Kashtira running around, although the deck was still seeing the occasional top here and there. But for the most part, the format does feel wide open. I feel like you could bring any of like 10 different decks or so and expect to do well at a large event. Of course, with that, there is a lot of uncertainty in the market as well, and a ton of different cards that are moving around in price as people try to figure out what they should be playing and picking up. Let's get started. First up, we have Raid Raptor Arsenal Falcon. So this is actually a card that very early Kashtira decks tried playing sometimes. As a generic rank 7, this card lets you special summon any level 4 winged beast monster out of your deck. So some players would try to use this card to special summon out Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds and cheese out some wins that way. Of course, this was pretty inconsistent and obviously stopped seeing play once Barrier Statue was banned, and so Arsenal Falcon kind of fell out. However, after the most recent ban list, it seems that some players are turning to this card again as a generic extra deck option and adding in a bigger Raid Raptor engine to their Kashtira strategies, allowing them to go into Utopic Draco Future. Now, I personally am not too sure about the exact combo lines, but it seems to add some interesting plays to the deck. I haven't seen too many of those lists running around from regional tops and whatnot, but of course it is just the first weekend of the new format, so still very early. Because of this, Arsenal Falcon has jumped up a little bit in price once again. It is only a super rare from Rise of the Duelist, but with just the one printing and Rise of the Duelist now being a year or two old, it's now a solid $4 to $5 card. We don't really have a reason to suspect that this card will be reprinted anytime soon, since we did just have all of Battles of Legend revealed and this card isn't in there, but just in case this card gets reprinted in an OTS tournament pack or something, I think it makes the most sense to dig through your bulk to offload this card if you have any, and just keep 1 or 2 copies aside for yourself to potentially use. The next card we have is Manadium Realmheart, a brand new card from Cyberstorm Access. Realmheart is a key piece of the Manadium archetype, which is a continuation of the Visa Starfrost lore. This card is of course a 3-of for the Manadium deck. While it's in your hand, you can pop a Manadium monster or a 1500 attack point, 2100 defense point monster that you control to special summon this card, and then on summon it can search for any Manadium card from the deck other than itself. With the Manadium cards, popping your own cards is very important as it can trigger their effects. I think that Manadium really surprised a lot of players this weekend with how good the deck was, as we actually saw a lot of different lists running around that saw top spots at various regionals. Interestingly enough, a lot of the lists I saw were pretty simple, choosing to just max out on most of the Manadium cards, which was pretty cool to see. Of course, we will have to wait until we have a YCS or larger scale event to see just how well Manadium can do this format, but the early results do seem promising. For a while, it did seem like Manadium was just going to be a flop. They didn't really perform at all on release, and because of this the card had swiftly fallen down to around $5 to $6. Now, however, with the deck starting to see some success, Realmheart is up to a pretty solid $10 per copy. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the deck does moving forward. I think that there's some stuff coming in the next couple of core sets between Duelist Nexus and Age of Overlord that could potentially help out the Manadium, so we're going to have to wait and see. Don't pay retail on Realmhearts quite yet. Instead, wait for some of the hype to die down and see if you can grab Realmhearts for around $7 to $8, then hold on to them as we see how the format and the deck develop. On to the next one, it is Spiral Double Helix. So on the most recent ban list, we saw Spiral Quick Fix go to 3, and while it probably isn't going to make a big change to the format, it was really interesting. Spirals had 2 different points where they were at the top of the format, and there will definitely be players that look back at the deck fondly. However, at the same time, I think that given how strong the deck has proven itself to be, it probably won't be meta relevant anytime soon unless it gets some crazy new support cards in the future. Now, that being said, Double Helix is a Link 2 monster for the Spiral archetype, and I think everyone recognizes that this is the card that sent Spiral over the top. It lets you basically summon a Spiral monster out of your deck for free, which really got the ball rolling with cards like Quick Fix and Master Plan generating even more advantage from there. Now, to me, it was really weird to see Quick Fix get the reprint in Battles of Legend and not Double Helix, since Quick Fix already had a holo upgrade in an OTS tournament pack, and Double Helix only has the one printing from back in Circuit Break. Despite that though, Double Helix is now the card that people have to grab to round off their spiral cores that is a little bit harder than everything else to find, and so Double Helix has gone from being a simple $2 to $3 card to now being $5 to $6 per copy. For most people, if you have this archetype, you probably played the deck a long time ago and just have the whole core together, but if you randomly happen to have a copy or two lying around, it does make sense to offload it now while there is a bit of hype around it. I personally am expecting the card to be included in an OTS tournament pack as a common or super, since Quick Fix literally just got peeled off of the list, so I wouldn't want to hold on to too many extra copies of this card outside of a max rarity core that you happen to have sitting in your binder. Hey guys, before we go on, I want to remind everyone to hop over and check out MSTmerch.com. That's where you can find our MST.TV exclusive sleeves to rock at your next event. Aside from that, make sure that you guys check out our brand new Altsy Ego sleeves, which were designed by Tombox himself. I don't know about you guys, but I think these sleeves are absolutely insane. The whole Shadow Realm sort of effect is really cool, and the purples really pop out of the sleeve. These sleeves look even more amazing in person, and they will definitely make your friends jealous. Aside from that, we have two different cloth playmats up with really simple classic designs for when you're playing with your friends. Our black and white sleeves are up there as well, with those being really smooth and perfect for sleeving up your favorite decks regardless of what format you're playing. There's also NFT sleeves for stuff in your binder that is not for trade, and dividers to help you sort out your entire collection. So regardless of if you're a competitive player or just a casual collector, you're sure to find something just for you at MSTmerch.com. Okay, the next card we have here, whose name I'm probably going to botch, is Phantasmal Lord Ultimatal Bish Balkan. So this card is an interesting old synchro monster that actually can't be synchro summoned technically, but instead is summoned from the extra deck by sending two level 8 or higher monsters with the same level to the graveyard, where one is a tuner and the other is a non-tuner. Now this card gains 1,000 attack points for each monster on the field, and during either player's main phase you can special summon an equal number of 0/0 tokens to each player's side of the field. So with Bish Balkan, there are some interesting combos that you can do in Manadium, but I think that the card becomes especially crazy after Duelist Nexus, which is when the Crimson Dragon is released. There's a combo that lets you go into Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity on your opponent's turn, which basically stops them from playing the game altogether. Anyways, I don't know if that's going to be consistent or if it's more just like a niche line of play. A couple of my friends at locals are pretty hyped to try it out, which probably means it's going to be really bad. Anyways, Bish Balkan actually only has one printing from back in Premium Gold 3, which is back in 2016. Historically, Bish Balkan isn't more than $2, but with the hype for this combo a couple of months from now, Bish Balkan is up to around $6 to $7 per copy. It has been a really long time since this card came out, so I'm tempted to say that this card should get a reprint soon, but it also feels like one of those cards that's going to be really easy for Konami to overlook, so I'm not too sure. I really want this card to get a holo printing other than Gold Rare, though if the combo that plays this card is really that good, then it's a piece that might even actually get banned before we have a chance to see it see play. The next card for us to look at is Ohime the Manifested MCconko. So this is an interesting ritual monster from a pretty strange archetype. The archetype itself is really niche, and it involves around attacking your opponent's monsters and inflicting damage to your opponent that way. So on release, players thought that we could use Ohime as an engine card, where you search another MCconko card and then discard a card, so potentially providing a discard outlet in a deck like Dark World. Because of that, the card has jumped up considerably. It had fallen down to around $20 shortly after its released, but then it jumped up to $40 out of nowhere. However, that was pretty short-lived, and we haven't really heard all that much about MCconko since then, even though they got a couple of new support cards in Cyberstorm Access, and the card was as low as $12 each. Now, however, MCconko seems to be a deck that players are considering once again. Over in the OCG, some players are looking at MCconko as a legitimate deck choice that could cheese out free wins if players aren't expecting to play against it. And here in the TCG, it is still early in the format, but I think there were two different MCconko deck lists that managed to take a couple of top spots at regionals this past weekend as well. Because of this, the card is now back up to $20 per copy. Nothing too insane or crazy, but it's definitely up a solid percentage from where it was at a couple of weeks ago. As a relatively new card from Amazing Defenders, I don't think that this card is going to be reprinted anytime soon, so it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. The deck might be a bit cheesy for now, but depending on how the format develops, it might be a really cool deck for you guys to try out at a locals or regionals, or maybe we'll even see the MCconko engine pop up again after Duelist Nexus with a new Dark World card. I wouldn't pick this card up at its retail price for right now, but if you can grab a set for around $45 to $50, I think that's a reasonable price to pay for an engine that has a decent amount of upside potential. So maybe I did speak a little too early last time, but Bestial Magma is, I think, a really important card for us to keep our eyes on this format. Magma is of course like a DD Crow that only hits dark or light monsters, but summons itself to the board and searches for a dragon in the end phase of the turn that it's special summoned. Really crazy card, and even though Kashtira is still in the format, and Mathmex just got hit because they were a deck that this card was good against, they are still really useful against a lot of different strategies. On top of that, Dragon Link is looking like a really legit contender yet again, a popular deck that a lot of people liked from a few formats ago. Magma is a tool that they didn't have access to before, and it's really great for them because it can be an interruption, yet also an extender that fetches you another card. Now when we looked at this card a few weeks ago, it was up to around $12, but now the card is already up to $17 to $18 per copy, which is getting really close to hitting that $20 mark for a super rare from a recent core set, which is honestly kind of crazy. Of course, we do have to be wary of Magma getting that Megatane reprint later this year, which is only a few months away actually, so depending on what deck you're playing for this upcoming format, or what people play at your locals, this might be something that you're better off offloading rather than holding on to. With hand traps, that's always dangerous, right? Because they can move in and out of formats so quickly, but if you're planning on sticking to playing at your locals, and maybe a bunch of people there are just still on decks like Kashtira and Runic where this card doesn't have as much utility, then you may as well get some value out of this card while you can before the reprint makes that value go down quite a bit. And finally, the last card for us to talk about today is Crossout Designator. Now this is a quick play spell card that was one of the most hyped up cards that we've seen in a long time, yet ultimately hasn't seen that much success here in the TCG. Basically, you can declare a card name and banish a card with that name from your deck, then negate the effects of that card name from both players until the end of the turn. So in the OCG, this card was crazy and used to stop hand traps as well as key cards in mirror matches. However, in the TCG, this card has ultimately been a flop. It sees occasional success here and there, but didn't live up to the hype at all, and I think most people recognize that this card was kind of a disappointment. Now, however, I think it might actually be possible that this card will see play. We're seeing a lot of people on different hand traps now. I think people are on Ash, Nibiru, D-Shifter, Jolan Lockbird, and Crossout Designator is able to stop all of those different things. On top of that, with Gamma now being limited to 1, there's only so many ways that you can stop those really annoying hand traps, so players who really need their cards to resolve without being interrupted might have to turn to playing Crossout Designator. With this card, there's just the Ultra and Secret Rare printings, each of which is from a different year of Megatins. Now when the Secret printing came out in last year's tin, I think a lot of people were really caught off guard, and a card that already wasn't doing that great fell even further, so for a time the card was only $5 to $7 per copy. Now though, the card is back up to $10 for each printing, and depending on how the format goes, maybe we're at a point where players have to run this card in order to play through specific hand traps. Either way, if you're looking to run this card, make sure that you own at least a set of it. It's relatively cheap and it has a crazy amount of potential, so I could definitely see it shooting up in price in the near future with enough usage. Alright guys, that is all we have for today. Still early on in the format, but it will be good to see some more changes. I think we'll have to see some more things changing with Assault Synchron coming out in Battles of Legend, and how that card can allow decks to do some really cool things as well. But for now, we're just going to have to wait and see. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are trending on the market. Also, if you haven't already, do make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.